Hey guys, welcome back to my series on Node and VS Code. Where we left off last time is we were dealing with writing functions. And what I want to talk about now are different function styles, because you're going to see different, what I would call notations. And then you go, well, is that a function? It looks very different than what Rob showed me earlier. Oh, I did find out that I have this arm works too. And that. So we'll start with old school. So what would old school be? Good question. So I'll try to uh, describe what I see as old school. Typically, it's multi-line. We come in, keyword function, give it a name, set up some parameters, and then we typically have a brace and a closing brace, and we have a bunch of lines of code in here. Functions are usually multi-line, so there's usually more than one line in there. There could be a whole bunch of logic, and so it's easier just to space it out, one line per statement, and that. And so and this is a little bit of JavaScript gold I found. This will actually ask JavaScript, what function am I currently in, basically. It should return print 1, but we won't know. But let's try it out. Print 1, see what it says. And then we'll go here and test this. Node main.js. Hey, inside print 1. Good, that worked. Now, another style that you might see, that's our old school, is when Java became first-class citizens and that. And so what does that mean? It means functions became a data type in the language. Some people say functions got to the level of classes like you would see in other languages like Python and Java, sort of. But definitely they are a type in the language, and you can pass them around like you would pass around a string, pass around an array. You can say, hey, here's a function that you can run later, which is sort of the core principle of callbacks in doing asynchronous work on the web. So let's take a look. And we'll go back here. So I could write the function like this, right? And then the question would be, well, is that just writing that function on one line? Kind of. Gets really nasty near the end, and that, because this is the statement in there. So I could, because this is JavaScript and the line doesn't end until the semicolon, I could just as easily do this, right? And it starts to look old school, correct? That kind of looks like the one above, except this part's different, right? But also this part's different. Print is equal to, right, function who am I, and that. And so we weren't doing that before. Some variable is equal to, right? I probably should, in all honesty, go const in front of this, right? But I'll bring this all back up on one line. So you could have a multi-line thing in here. It would get confusing, but you will run into JavaScript files that have been minified, where they take out all the white space, all the tabs, all the spacing, all the new lines, and so it's a much smaller file when they send it over the web. And they use the braces and the semicolons to figure out, who belongs to who and when to stop, kind of deal. But up here, I'm just declaring a function that I call later. Here, I'm making a variable, okay? And I can go print 2, right? We're going to get a very interesting answer in that. So let's give that a shot. So inside print 1, inside print who am I? And that, because I said over here function who am I, right? Set up some parameters. This is my code, right? And that. One thing we can do is we can also, for fun, once this started happening, 13, and that the fact that functions are first-class citizens, you can then ask the system to, here I'll do a console.log. We can ask type of. So So what is print1? If we encounter it in the system, we can ask a question. Print1 is a type of what? Is it a string? Is it an array? What is it? And we can ask the same question of print2. What are you? And this is more about inspecting the language and seeing what the language thinks it's looking at. So we'll run that. Right? So the system sees print1, your function, print2, your function as well. So then people go, well, what? This got confusing because it says I'm inside who am I, but I'm really running print2. Another thing is, do I have to give this a name? So you see another style where we called anonymous functions, where we don't actually give them a name. So this is not that much different. What have I done? I have gotten rid of this part here. I didn't give the function a name. I said, look, print3 is a function. It takes some arguments, and this is the code that's inside it. Okay, so we'll take this, copy it, update it for print3. Notice that JavaScript doesn't have a problem with any style, but what style is going to work for you, right? What styles is going to be easier to debug? What style is going to be easier to maintain for yourself, right? And that could change over time, just so you know. Oh, main, actually node, main.js. Inside print1, I'm a function. Inside who am I? I'm a function. Inside print3, function. Now, because it's anonymous, it picks up the name that you assigned here. Got one more style, and this is a recent addition, and this is using arrow syntax. So people probably complain, why do I have to put a name when I'm actually calling it print2 over here? So we were able to get rid of the name. And then people go, well, I'm making a function. Do I have to say this keyword? And so this is using arrow syntax. So this is new, arrow functions. And it's all about, condensing or using less characters to create the function. So here I have print4. And so what happens here? I get rid of the word function, but I need some sort of trigger in the language to say, I'm still a function. Okay. And a lot of what's going on is these parentheses in the language, like we saw with prompt sync, means you're a function or you're running a function. And what I say the difference between a firecracker and a lit firecracker in that. So again, that's a little more condensed, and we can then test that as well. So you're going to see all types out there in the wild, and we'll just try to get you ready in that. So right now, if I had a choice, it's going to be between setting up a bunch of functions old school in a file and doing a require to bring them in, or probably doing the arrow syntax if I'm within one particular file in that. It's probably the way I would lean right now. So CLS, right, in that. So this one is kind of interesting, right? This picked up that it's inside print3, but once we look what's happened on the print4, right? The print4 definitely got confused, but that it has no idea who it's inside, right? It's kind of lost in that kind of concept that it's actually, well, I don't quite know, right? In that. And so there are some subtle difference with the arrow syntax versus this one up here. So if this is important, right, to actually have a name and know, then you may want to use this intermediate style that I'm using on print3. Okay, but we've proven on print4 that it really doesn't know who it is anymore at this point in that. But this is, you're going to see this if you're going to look at some latest JavaScript function calls, especially in Node especially with promises, something that I'm doing currently in some of my labs in another course, you're definitely going to see this style. Okay, and if you're not sending data, then it typically looks like this. You'll see a set of parentheses. You see the arrow syntax. Then you see some braces that define the function. Now here's another thing. If you're only going to have one line, so we could do a print 5 example. So say it's a function that has no data, then it will look like this. And say it's only one line. It can be that simple. So this, you could have the braces in here if you're going to have multiple lines separated by semicolons. So I could actually have a 2-line thing here, all written on one line. But if it is going to be just a one-liner and there's no data to send in, it's just a set of parentheses, the arrow, and then the one line of code that you want to happen. So you could also run into that 5th style as well. And so it all depends. Are you sending data? Are you not sending data? Is it one line of code or multi-lines of code? All you're getting rid of in the multi-lines of code are these, from going from one line to a multi-line, is that brace there and this one here, right? So if you only have one line in your function, you don't even need the braces. So that's about all I wanted to show you, is these different styles and how it can really get condensed and down to something as short and sweet as this line we see on print 5. We should probably test. I say that's going to work. Maybe not, right? So it's working, but you can see that the last two, we can say they're truly anonymous now. They have no idea who they are, right? So if we ask them, who are you? They don't know, okay? And so you will bump into all forms of functions. Like I said, you'll see some old school ones. You probably, if someone grew up in the functions as first-class citizens, you will probably see this notation here a lot. Okay. But today with the arrow syntax, and this will depend what version of the Emacs spec that your browser supports, but most of them are at this level where they support the arrow functions. And this is if you're going to have multi-lines, more than one line in here. So then something would come in this area here. But if it's just one line like this, console log something out, you won't even see that set of braces. They're not required. Okay, and so we can see that this, our version 5, looks very different than our old school version. But you can see how we got there, right? First class citizens with a name, first class citizens without a name, arrow functions, and then arrow functions with no data and just one line of code. So that's all for now. Take care. Bye.